Anyway.
Loki.
We're
gonna be low key talking about.
We're gonna
Loki.
be low key.
It's a 100% original joke. Nobody steal it.
No one steal it, even though I'm sure many people have. So it's finally over. Was 6 episodes enough? Yeah. I think 8's a good number.
Yeah. Well, we have yet to do the whole thing. The welcome to Popcorn Poppin introductions.
Welcome to Popcorn Poppin. My name's Tony.
And I'm Dan.
I think the reason that it's a little harder to make a proper intro to this is because the end of this series was the end of this season was very similar to the end of Infinity War. I was kind of like,
good comparison. What? Very good comparison.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's pretty much how I felt. The end of this, very much the way I felt at the end of Infinity War. So, elaborate for a bit. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Overall, I think it's a good thing because the end of Infinity War, so here's what the circumstance was. Me and my friend Josh watched Infinity War. We had to see the first show of it, and it was at like 10 o'clock, and we both had just gotten off of work, and we had work early in the morning the next day. And so having all of that shit happen, and then that ending happen, and going home, you're like, I gotta get up early in the morning tomorrow and just think about what just happened, because I'm confused, but I think I know what's going on. And that whole span of waiting until next time, that conversation, that spark of conversation, that wonder, the dread, all of that, overall, I thought it was absolutely worth it. So I do think that this wait that we're going to have to endure will be worth it.
Yeah.
But man.
Yeah. So
yikes.
I know we have both episodes to talk about here, and I'll say just out of the gate that like overall I actually did enjoy the 6 episodes and even getting up to the end. I will say that the reason that the ending of this to me feels shakier than Infinity War is that Infinity War had Thanos, and it had a character that had been developing over time and progressively getting more screen time. And by the time they brought out a movie that was essentially about him, he felt like the star of the show, and this movie was kind of centered around him. And like I knew that character and the purpose of that little episode within the grand narrative of the MCU. And in this, we almost have the inverse, where we know virtually nothing about this character that is, of course, being set up to be a new Marvel villain.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into that, we don't have to do recaps or anything, but these last 2 episodes are vastly different from each other, with genre and with plot lining. So episode 5, Mega Loki Cum Fests is what I call it. Because it's a shit ton of Lokis, and I was...
Did you say it's Loki Cum Laude?
Yeah, sure, if you want to have a more PG-esque way of saying it, but... Dude, I remember how angry I was, and it's very apparent in our last podcast, how angry I was at episode 4's ending. Like, I don't want more Loki.
Boom! All Lokis.
All Lokis, and honestly, when they brought on even more Lokis than the 3 that we were introduced to, that's when I was like, okay, this is awesome, this is fun. That scene of Tom Hiddleston playing another Loki and getting his arm cut off,
eaten off by alligator Loki.
Oh, it was eaten off. Yeah, I
loved episode 5, maybe like the best episode apart from like episode 1, because it is significantly more self-contained, and it does take just silliness to the max, and it's like the most comic book ass shit that Marvel has ever put out, and I love it for leaning so heavily into that. But
it was kind of to me, it reminded me of how how much I think I liked this more than you did, but it was Agatha all along sequence. Like that to me was the showrunners like saying bon voyage to the fun TV experience genre that they were going to, and like leaning completely into it, especially with and I killed the dog as well. But that's kind of and oh my god, I loved that. But that's what I thought of immediately. I'm like, wow, you guys are really getting into it.
Yeah,
and that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
You're right. Yeah, I'll agree. It definitely comes at that similar kind of time in the series, and. What's funny though is that like the the thumbnail for like that episode and when that episode came out and everything was like the other Loki leader just looking smug, and ultimately takes such a backseat to what that episode is really about. So it's almost funny that they're like trying to pander to the Tom Hiddleston fandom without this actually being a Tom Hiddleston fan club. Like,
and without it being like, and like that scene is technically not important at all.
It really isn't. It really isn't. It's just like a fun idea that there's like this band of marauding Lokis that are all trying to essentially fight each other for power. And it's just like, it distills Loki down to its like bare essence of comedy. And it really works. And like, especially with the whole like alligator biting the Loki's arm off and then all of them fighting each other. It's like, okay, this is just super silly and we can leave it at that and like get on to the rest of this episode. But
and our characters literally leave it at that. And you don't know what happened down there.
But I liked, classic Loki. I liked that they didn't just get like another Tom Hiddleston to just wear the goofy old costume. What was it Richard Grant?
Richard E.
Grant is just fantastic as classic Loki. But I also like the world that they find themselves in. I like the whole idea that they come to of course we know pruning wasn't killing because everybody getting pruned, or else why call it pruning? You're right. So to have them all basically sent to just like a time garbage dump is really fun. And then there's like this giant have you ever watched James and the Giant Peach? And there's like the rhino in the clouds. It's basically the rhino in the clouds that's there like devouring people who happen to be pruned and find themselves at the end of time. But that's
a really good comparison.
That's basically what it is. And Sylvie's like, I'm going to charm it, and me as a viewer, I'm like, okay, because I don't like have any understanding for you to say like why that would or would not work. And I was okay with it in this the end of this episode. But then I feel like episode 6 all kind of hinges on that logic of like, I'm just taking your word for it because I don't have any reason to believe otherwise in terms of like what the man at the end of time is saying and whatnot. So, but I'm rushing ahead and I should give you a chance to talk about episode 5.
Well, honestly, I didn't really. It's just that scene, because our last conversation, we were very positive that this was going to end up exactly how it always ends up, and that is it's going to turn Marvel and I'm not going to like it. So when that scene happened with the fun Loki scene, which by the way is interesting because as you said, it kind of how they thumbnail it and how they advertise was pandering to the Tom Hiddleston fan club. I remember specifically when I saw that trailer, I was intrigued by the show, but the thing that I hated the most was they show him going like something like "join us," and then they all point their weapons at him, and he goes, "What?" And I was like, I don't want to watch this show. But that ended up being not only a completely unimportant scene, but a very fun scene. Yeah. So props to the Kansas City shuffle that they did. Now, when Sylvie said, "I'm going to charm the cloud monster," which I always think of Lost, no matter what color it is, whether it be purple or blue or black. I was like, sure, in that exhausting, like, sure, because something stupid's going to come out of this. It was cool to see classic Loki, Richard E. Grant, also tag team to help. It wasn't. It didn't like strike a chord with me. Besides, like, oh, cool, I get one more Richard E. Grant scene. But
exactly.
When he goes the go, I was like, all right, whatever. We're probably never gonna see you again anyway.
Yeah, it's fun purely in like a predictable plotting format where it's just like, let's introduce this new guy that's charismatic and fun and give him a bunch of screen time. And we can't just let him walk away. Like, we got to give him a good send off. And it was like, in terms of what actually happens there, it's again down to like the internal show logic of like, I have no reason to believe that he can't do this. It's just, they say, I guess Lokis are more powerful than we realize. Like,
yeah,
sure.
And it was actually, I will say, like, it was very impressive that he basically created
Asgard?
another Asgard. That was actually pretty cool. I was like, whoa, that is pretty powerful. So I will say they did it in a cool, in an impressive way. I won't say it was cool. I'm being such an asshole.
You can like this. It's okay. You have permission to like it.
Exactly. I liked it. I don't know why I have a butt thing. I just always have if people like something in my eyes too much, then I have a problem with it. But no, I liked it just fine.
Yes.
And I thought it was a great ending to that episode. Was a great ending because it's like, okay, what's gonna happen now? And I personally was thinking the next episode is not gonna be much. I remember talking about it with friends and thinking about WandaVision, because in WandaVision, when we discussed it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think it's this character from this comic book that we haven't seen yet. And I was thinking like of how angry I was when, it was technically a character that we weren't introduced yet because they were deceiving us by posing as another character. However, because I remembered that, I was thinking that whoever the person behind the curtain is, it's got to be someone we've met already.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And it
absolutely isn't. Yeah, it's
now. Before we talk about him, we are about to talk about him.
We are about to talk about him.
If you guys don't know who this actor is, his name is Jonathan Majors. I think it's Majors. I should know that. It is Jonathan Majors. I'm going to be confident. If you haven't watched Lovecraft Country, watch Lovecraft Country.
Oh, when does he show up in Lovecraft Country?
What?
I haven't watched the show in
county.
A
We're
hot
calling
second.
it wrong. Isn't it county or is it country?
Country.
We are terrible at this.
It's
country, right?
It's Lovecraft Country.
Okay. That's the star of Lovecraft Country.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize. I've watched the first
he plays a different character.
4 episodes of Lovecraft Country a while back and haven't gotten back to it. So
that's fair. And also, like, Lovecraft Country is one of those shows where you're gonna hear the hipster kids say it's one of the best shows ever made, and it started off that way, but the second half kind of falls off a little bit, to be honest. I would like it to continue because it's very, very creative, but in any case, it is totally worth starting out because it's a very genre bending show.
Yeah.
That is what Jonathan Majors is from. I haven't looked at his filmography in a while, but he's probably popped up in small little things. It was announced a few months ago that Jonathan Majors was going to play Kang the Conqueror, but he was casted in Ant-Man 3, which is coming out not next year, but in 2023. Huh. So that was something to look forward to. And so when they open the door and it's him, I'm like, oh, okay. And I was very. It's one thing. That's one reason you gotta just quit the internet if you like movies and TV a lot. Because I would have been so much more satisfied than, oh, okay. I would have been like, what? Who the fuck is he? Who's he gonna be?
Yeah.
But now I have a very strong feeling that this is. I have a strong feeling that this is a variant of the big bad, our Thanos. I think we have just been introduced to Thanos personally.
Yeah, right. And tangential but related. I was talking with another friend about the finale here, and I'm like, yeah, it seems like they spent the entire climax building up a character that they don't really build up, or a villain that they don't really reveal. And my friend was like, oh, they totally revealed him. But granted, you have to read some stuff online and watch some videos. So maybe in the end, they didn't reveal him. And I'm like, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And from what you said in the beginning of this was, which is it's problematic, and it's problematic on a few fronts. For one, watching this entire scene is like it was a lot of information to throw at the audience. It's a lot of information to throw at the characters, and especially because we're introduced to someone new, and especially because we don't understand what the fuck is going on. Mm-hmm. Neither does the characters. And you don't even know if you should trust this guy, obviously. And so you're left with a lot of like, what the hell is going on?
Yep.
Which is a very fun feeling, though. I do like that feeling because you're like, what's going to happen next? Having said that, the entire scene of him explaining, it needed to be that long, but I was like, all right, let's move on. I want to move away from this. I don't want to be here anymore. Because I get that you're throwing this at us, but when I'm watching him, I'm critiquing the shit out of, okay, this is going to be a very, very, very important character, whether he's the big bad or not. So I'm going to critique the fuck out of him. And honestly, I love you, Jonathan Majors, and I will end up having, my friend brought up a good point of why he chose this way. But his acting style reminded me of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor.
Oh, okay. I did not watch.
That is not a compliment.
No, I didn't. I didn't get it. Like, there's something very like weird and slithery about like how he's constantly like leaning in and whatnot. And but the thing is that it all feels like affect. It doesn't feel like it's his character. It just feels like because again, we don't know anything about this character. Like, we need to make him like weird and quirky and memorable, and like I don't see any substance out the gate from that performance.
Yeah, it seemed to me, this is what I thought at first, but I will bring up a friend's take on it, and I think he's 100% correct. I was thinking like Lovecraft Country came out, and like there are certain things you watch or certain actors that you see where you're like, this person's going to be way bigger. For example, Black Widow featured Florence Pugh, and when I first saw that actress in a project called Little Drummer Girl, I was convinced that this actress is going to be very important someday. And she showed up in big movies like Little Women, Black Widow, and stuff like that. But after Black Widow, you learn, okay, yeah, she's probably going to be in a very, very important part of MCU. Point being, she will be a household name. Brie Larson, after I watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, mm-hmm. I was like, I love her because she's so different in this. She's such a great actress. But not Room, but Short Term 12. I watched that, and I'm like, this is going to be somebody. And she gets casted as Captain Marvel. And I'm not saying you have to be a Marvel actor or actress to be somebody, but I knew you were going to be somebody. So when I watch a show like Lovecraft Country, and Jonathan Majors is probably the most unknown forefront actor in that show, I'm like, this actor's probably going to be somebody. So that's a lot of build up, especially if you're playing a main villain. And it seemed to me that the producers and everyone were like, just let him do his thing. It's going to be known as one of the best performances of all time. And it seemed to me that Jonathan Majors himself thought, I'm going to do my thing. It's going to be one of the best performances of all time. And he let loose, and I'm like, I don't want to watch you let loose anymore because I'm not that impressed. That's just me. That's what I thought of it.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
It's also just that, like, he's working with nothing character-wise because he's introduced as a plot device in episode 6. Right. So it's like,
I'm going to kill you.
Exactly. Right. And the other perspective that I could see this episode going is kind of like what was the second Cloverfield movie? Like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
So I could see him having like the role of the John Goodman type character where it's like, this guy's kind of creepy, but also maybe there's something behind like what he's saying, but we just can't know because the world outside here is like unseen and unknown. But the thing is that like the role that benefits from is one, like John Goodman is playing against type in that performance. So his creepiness is like really unsettling. And also you have a whole movie that's just like a bottleneck episode with these 3 characters. And I almost feel like if there was that kind of setup with this one particular character and he didn't need to like explain how the reality of everything worked, and it was just like, do we trust him? Do we not trust him? Will the world end based on our actions? Like that would have had a little bit more impact to me. And instead it's just, it's incredibly plot centric with a character that we've never seen, with a guy who's trying to imbue that character with some kind of personality when his whole role in this is about plot and not character.
And yeah, I agree with that. That John Goodman, best acting is reacting, and there's not much reacting that Jonathan Majors really can do.
No, because Loki and Sylvie like totally take a back seat throughout the entire episode.
Totally. And I think when you're trying to do a role like that, or you're trying to showcase a role like that, maybe it's okay to... I think you have to... I guess I understand. I do understand why you first show they can't kill him. Because Sylvie, as her character, that stands that she would continuously try to kill him. And it is revealed that it is literally impossible to kill him. You can't. You keep trying,
until she does.
She tries. She tries several times, and she's just grumpy the whole time. Loki, I understand that he wants to listen, but there are good monologues with a person just sitting there. But yes, there is way too much unknown, and I don't know this character, and blah 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 blah. But like, first of all, play the set. Don't let most of the monologue be behind a table. I get that you have little cartoon characters doing something on the desk to make it more interesting, but it's really nothing. It's not. It's nothing. It is. Hey, don't forget that we have kids that watch MCU, and we have dumb people watching MCU, so we may need a visual representation of what he's going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes. That's exactly what it was. But also, like, don't make it... Sure, make some of it a monologue, like his backstory, but also remember that there are 2 other people in the room and let them interject more than, we need to kill him. Let him talk every minute or so. Yep, just try some other stuff. Make the scene more interesting rather than me. It seemed like I was sitting through class. It made me seem like I was learning something that if I did not pay every little bit of attention to, that I would fuck up in the future and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that because he talked for so long.
Yeah. And
his chuckling and shit was supposed to make it more interesting, but it didn't land as well.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. And with the man, hang on. I just lost my train of thought. We'll cut this. We'll take care of this post. No. So it's even keeping it contained within the story that's been set up and not just like commenting on this in kind of a grander sense of his place in the rest of this series. The self-contained logic kind of betrays itself too, because he's this guy at the end of the universe who says that he's got every possible outcome, and that's why he can just like teleport whenever Sylvie swings a sword at him or whatever, because it's been scripted, and he literally puts a script down in front of her of what she's going to say, and then it's like, okay, so we have these possible outcomes, and you can either kill me and all of a sudden like chaos will take over, the other variants of me will like start a multiversal war, or the two of you can take over my job and run the time variance association and everything. And it's like, first, I don't understand his motivation behind all that. I think that he mentions that he's tired or something. But
yeah,
surely,
it's basically boredom because he's lived everything. He's like, I'm old.
I'm done.
Yeah.
So,
he's just done.
So, right. And then in that case, like, why does he wait to present them with this ultimatum? And like, surely he would have just known that Sylvie was going to kill him, right? Because that he would have seen that and
apparently
it's been written. Or if like he was really tired of everything, then like he didn't need to give this entire monologue. He could have just they could have just waltzed up and killed him, and he could have been like, also here's the key to my time factory, do whatever you want with it. I'm like a zany end of time Willy Wonka, goodbye.
Yeah, he is kind of like Willy Wonka. Just like time travel movies, I try not to think about it too much. It's a shitty answer.
It'll fall apart if you think about it too much.
It's a shitty answer, but that's the only way I can think. Which made the scene a little more interesting to me of him saying, "Oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know." Like that part was kind of cool.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I didn't know what was going on there because the world was just shaking, and he was like, "I don't know what's happening." Like, okay, sure. Because I don't have like any kind of preconceived understanding or context to assume otherwise. I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, if you say so. This whole episode.
That's one thing about like me and you talking about Marvel is that I hope that we never, like, I'm sure that we will have other people join us, like, for some episodes and stuff, but I don't think we can ever allow, like, an avid Marvel reader, because I'm sure, like, that they hate, like, you guys don't get it. You don't fucking get it. And that's not his name. And that's not what they're doing. Like, and I have Marvel friends that read the comic books. Only like a handful. One of them doesn't know shit about Kang, and the other one, he's like, I know a little bit about him, and from what I saw, yeah, they did okay. But I actually don't know how well that they did with like representing him. But I'm sure that it was very satisfying for a lot of people. In any case, it's a lot to take in. Now, one defense for the choices that Jonathan Majors had with this role is that we now know that there are, hopefully not infinite, but that there are many, many different Kangs. A multiverse of Kangs, which
a multiverse of madness
coming up, which I'm sure, which I'm guessing will be, I think is going to show up again in Spider. He's going to pop up every once in a while.
Sure.
But we're going to meet probably a lot more different Kangs, which means we're probably going to meet a lot of different personalities. So this is one of them. So maybe, hopefully, this is the worst one. This is the one that's like, oh, well, I've seen all of it and I have no ambitions, so this is the type of person I am. But we're probably going to meet a dark brooding one, etc., other things. So when my friend Blaze said that, and I was like, I didn't really think about it that way. So yeah, I guess like this is him like doing these actor motivations so he can help shape a different type of Kang, which makes it more interesting. But what I really fucking hope is that there isn't... I understand that there's a lot of different universes. I just hope it's not infinite, because that's so tiring. Like, this conversation alone is tiring. But I hope that we find out that there's like 11, or maybe even less. Because if there's like an infinite amount of Kangs, that sounds like too much to juggle. I trust Marvel into doing it, but it seems like a lot.
It sounds like it's infinite, because that's what he sets up in the end, is that anytime a timeline doesn't go according to his plan, where another Kang could potentially pop up, he prunes it. So he's been preventing an infinite number of his own variations from arising. So it stands to reason that there are infinite number of him.
And I'm digging that this is how we're being introduced to like this. I mean, we've basically kind of already been introduced to different verses, but I dig how big that this show is. Why Loki? why
Loki?
Why did they choose him? Whatever.
Well,
I'm not going to dwell on it.
I'm fine with it. Like in the very beginning, when like the first 3 episodes were essentially like a Loki character study, and now it's kind of like shifting over into a grander like Marvel plot, which, to be fair, and it wouldn't be an episode of our show if we didn't talk about Marvel third act problems.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have it, because there basically just isn't like a traditional third act.
There isn't one.
Right, to the point where
they tricked us.
The after credits sequence is just a stamp that says Marvel, like, Loki will return in season 2. I'm like, well, I should hope so.
I didn't need that. So here's here's a question. I'm gonna say that this was the plan all along, but I think COVID played a hand somehow. I'm not saying that there was gonna be more. I'm sure that they were going to have a second season, but it seemed like they ended abruptly. But then again, I think that they did it on purpose, like Infinity War. But when that stamp happened, I'm like, God,
come on. Yes.
Why did you do that?
It.
I'd much rather have a lot less to look forward. I'd much rather the last thing I see is Kang and me wondering if Loki's going to come back. But saving grace, Loki related, the character of Loki. I forgot which scene it was, but he does some running around thing. I like Loki a lot. I can't say I love him yet, but I like he's not even prime Loki. I like this Loki a lot because heroic isn't the right word, but like this one's learned shit. Like, right. I think that this is a redeemed. I think that they've convinced me he is redeemed.
Penitent Loki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I know. I can't say the word though. Penitent. Penitent. This penitent Loki. I like that. I think the tie made it for me. He's got a new look about him. And I don't trust him, but no, I trust him. Fuck it.
Yeah,
he can have my trust.
I don't know. It is kind of, it's fun that like the show does kind of, it takes somebody who is like deliberately one-sided and kind of is able to shift them and give them a different perspective. So as long as like that's where they're going with it, and future Loki is returning not just to the show but maybe to other movies as like a different kind of character, it's like cool. I saw this character put in the work, and it's not like some of the other movies where you're just gonna do a 180. Now you have to like Loki.
Yeah, I think that he's earned it. The reason I was so against it before is because we saw the same thing over and over again. Now we're seeing something different. And even though I dislike change, I don't like rehashing the same thing over and over again or having the same characters throughout. That's why when I hear like Thor is Thor gonna still stay in the gang? Are they bringing back Captain America? I'm like, no, man. First of all, I know for a fact there's a shit ton of they had their time. They had their time, and everyone had a proper ending. I know Thor had like a really depressing end, but like, and I'm excited for the next Thor and everything. But like overall, like I'd like these characters to reach an end. I would like. Even though I want more Hulk, I've had my Hulk. Like, I'm okay with them moving away from it. This Loki is technically a different Loki, so fine. I accept it, and it feels like I am with a different character. So I dig it. Congratulations. And also, awesome, we get more Tom Hiddleston. You fucking sold me, and you got me admitting to it, and I'm even shocked that I'm even coming to this realization. But having said that, you know, I don't know what to expect anymore. Oh, sure. And before we close, I liked Sylvie versing Loki. That was a good those were good. That was a good conflict in their relationship, and that she had to bring him back to the TVA. You know, when they fought.
Yes.
After Kang was done talking, I thought that was it was very textbook, but I dug it. I thought that they did a good job with it. Yeah, but is this the same TVA? Is it different? We were with Mobius and Hunter B13.
We have to assume that it is not the same TVA, because nobody remembers Loki, and there's statues of Kang, of some variation of Kang in the TVA. So shit's done changed. And I would go further into it, but I think we've done enough. We've done double what I wanted again, but that's okay. I don't give a shit anymore. It leaves us on a hook, and you got me dangling. But fuck you for that stamp. I didn't need that stamp. I'd rather have had nothing. You guys could have done literally anything else. Literally like anything else.
I don't care. I don't care. All right. Until next time, we're going to have to talk about Black Widow after you watch it, by the way.
That's right. I'm going to have to watch it.
and dude, I'm telling you, you are probably not going to like it.
Okay, well, with that ringing endorsement, whoa!